Hey guys, tonight, we're slipping quietly through the mists of time and landing in the heart of feudal Japan. The sun is barely peeking over distant mountain ridges, casting soft golden light across rows of misty rice paddies. Bamboo groves creak softly in the wind, and the first smoky tendrils from cooking fires drift into the sky. You blink once, twice, and realize you're barefoot, cloaked in a rough hemp robe, standing in a tiny wooden house with more drafts than furniture. And no, there's no toilet. You probably won't survive this. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know where you're listening from and what time it is for yous. I love seeing how far this little sleep pod travels. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You stretch your arms and sit up on a flat straw mat, your only mattress for the night. The air is cold and smells faintly of last night's soup and wood smoke. Sunlight trickles through the thin shoji screens, those delicate paper walls that offer all the privacy of a whisper in a canyon. Your entire house is one room. No, wait. Technically, it's 3, but those are just areas divided by sliding panels. Your home is made of wood, earth, and bamboo, designed to breathe with nature, and sometimes, unfortunately, leak with nature too. You shuffle over the tatami mat floors, woven straw, surprisingly soft on your tired soles. Every footstep makes the tiniest brushing sound. That's good. It keeps the house quiet. It also lets everyone know when you're sneaking to the pickled plum stash. The fire in the orori, the sunken hearth, has long gone cold. You stoke it with a few splinters of pine wood, careful not to let the smoke choke the tiny space. Chimneys aren't a thing here, just a vented ceiling and sheer determination. You squat beside the hearth, holding your hands close to the heat like a cat who's seen better winters. A pot of yesterday's rice is still crusted to the iron kettle, but there's no time for luxury. You scrape some into a wooden bowl, splash on a bit of miso broth, and maybe, if the gods are kind, fish out a sliver of dried sardine from the bottom. Breakfast in feudal Japan is humbling. If you're lucky, you'll get natto, fermented soybeans. If you're really lucky, they won't wiggle when you stir them. You scarf it down with practiced speed because it's time to start your day. The roof may be thatched, but the schedule is carved in stone. Outside, the village is already humming. Children run barefoot down the dirt path, chasing a spinning toy made from twigs. An old man in a bent straw hat tightens the straps on his sandals, preparing to check the irrigation ditches. The air is thick with the smell of earth, smoke, and sweat, nature's cologne, bottled daily. Your neighbors greet you with sleepy bows. No small talk. Everyone knows what has to be done, and everyone's too tired to pretend they enjoy it. You glance toward the mountain path, where the nearest castle town looms, hours away. You've never been, of course. That's where samurai roam, and where people like you mostly just pay taxes. Your house, small as it is, was built with family hands. The framework is mortised wood, no nails, just precision and pressure. And the walls? Paper. You sneeze wrong, and it's a home renovation project. But they serve their purpose. They breathe, they move with the seasons, and they're easy to repair. Assuming you have paper, which is more expensive than you'd like. A single candle in the alcove, the tokonoma, sits beside a hand-painted scroll and maybe a flower arrangement, if it's a festival week. That's your home's one decorative spot, a little nod to balance and beauty amidst a sea of rice bowls and straw sandals. You remember last winter's chill, when the paper doors froze solid, and the only warmth came from a shared futon and some truly questionable plum wine. You're already dreading the next one. Historians still argue whether commoners in colder regions had central heating strategies or simply layered their souls with grit. Your wooden sandals, geta, wait outside the front door. You step into them, the cold bite of the platform making your heels clench. There's no left or right foot. They're symmetrical, as if your toes don't have a preference. Every step clacks loudly on the packed earth as you walk toward the fields. One thing's for sure, you'll hear your neighbor coming before you see them. A rooster crows on cue, possibly annoyed you're using his front yard as a shortcut. A few women are sweeping the path with straw brooms, more symbolic than effective. But hey, it's the gesture that counts. A historical tidbit you may not expect. Many villagers used ashes from the hearth mixed with sand to scrub the floors. Homemade soap? Who has the time? You just need grit, literally. And if you're a perfectionist, maybe a sprinkle of crushed shells. Around you, every home looks vaguely the same. Uniformity isn't just tradition, it's survival. Peasant homes were small, quick to rebuild, and often wiped out in floods, fires, or the occasional bandit rave. You look up at the roofline. That odd little fish-shaped tile? That's a shachihoko, a mythical creature believed to protect against fire. Yeah, a fish on the roof. Historians still debate whether this was spiritual insurance or just an architectural inside joke. A bell tolls in the distance. Not a church bell. Buddhist temples use a giant bronze bell, rung slowly, like the heartbeat of the town. It marks the time for work, prayer, or simply reflection. You pause for a moment, take in the rising mist, and let the sound hum through your ribs. There's beauty here, yes, but it's wrapped in hardship, practicality, and a little superstition. Life in feudal Japan isn't just about bushido and cherry blossoms. It's paper walls, creaky sandals, questionable breakfasts, and a never-ending list of chores. But it's also rhythm, routine, and community. Everyone has a role. Everyone knows the cost of peace, even if that peace is precarious. You tighten the cloth around your waist, take one more breath of smoky morning air, and start walking. You haven't gone far when the silence around the rice fields is suddenly broken, not by birdsong, but by the rhythmic clack-clack of hooves and the unmistakable metallic whisper of armor. You freeze mid-step. A rider is coming. Not just any rider. A samurai. He appears from the morning fog like a myth, straight backed atop a small, muscular horse, robes fluttering slightly beneath layers of lacquered armor. His hand rests casually on the hilt of his katana, and his gaze sweeps the road like a man checking for cracks in a blade. You instinctively bow, low, eyes to the dirt. You hold the bow longer than necessary because, frankly, you don't want to risk looking up and offending someone who can legally slice you in half for, well, basically anything. The air feels heavier when he passes. You don't exhale until his footsteps fade into the woods. Welcome to feudal Japan, where samurai aren't just warriors. They're lawmakers, tax collectors, moral police, and the local reminder that your life hangs by a thread woven entirely of someone else's honor code. The Bushido, the way of the warrior, governs everything about the samurai, at least in theory. It's a code of loyalty, self-discipline, and moral conduct. But historians still argue whether the average samurai lived by it like a holy text, or quoted it like an excuse. Either way, For someone like you, it's wise to nod and stay out of the way. You remember last spring, when a neighboring village was punished for harboring a ronin, a masterless samurai. Their fields were torched in retribution. No trial, just smoke and silence. That's when you really learned. A samurai with no master has nothing to lose, and that makes them more dangerous than war itself. You reach the village square, where an older man, your uncle, or maybe just an unrelated elder with opinions, is telling stories to a few teens, half listening, while pretending to sharpen farming tools. He talks about the Onin War, which ended a few decades ago, but still haunts this region. Clans fighting clans, cities burned to ash, families torn apart. You've heard it all before, but something about the way his voice cracks makes the tales feel real. He describes a siege once, where a group of peasants, armed with farming tools, held off samurai for 3 whole days. Spoiler, they still lost. But that defiance? That sticks with you. Because in this world, even a farmer's hoe can become a weapon, usually right before it becomes evidence. Back home, a scroll hangs in your neighbor's tokonoma, brushed in elegant calligraphy. The nail that sticks out gets hammered down. Words to live by. Or else. It's hard to explain just how much the samurai class shapes everything you do. They aren't just warriors. They're your landlords, your governors, and in some cases, your judges and executioners. The daimyo, the feudal lords, rule over vast regions, and the samurai serve them with blade and blood. You're at the very bottom of this pyramid, and it's best not to look up too long. The view rarely returns the favor. In theory, the samurai were expected to be cultured as well as deadly, writing poetry, practicing calligraphy, even performing tea ceremonies. Imagine your local cop casually writing haiku while polishing a blade. But not all samurai were elegant philosophers. Some were barely literate thugs with swords and a short temper. One even famously refused to learn how to read, claiming, "What good is poetry if the enemy's sword is in your gut?" Quirky? Maybe. Terrifying? Definitely. You once caught sight of a seppuku ceremony. Not the whole thing, just a glimpse through a bamboo fence. That's the ritual suicide samurai performed to restore lost honor. You still remember the crimson spreading on white robes, the drumbeat in your ears louder than your own pulse. Everyone says it's noble. You just remember the silence afterward. Still, there's a weird admiration that bubbles under your fear. These men live by a brutal discipline. Wake at dawn, train in swordsmanship, archery, tactics. Even during peace, they stay ready for war. Their blades, the katana and wakizashi, are not tools. They're soul-bound extensions of their very being. Legend says that a master swordsmith could craft a blade so sharp it would cut falling leaves in midair. Historians still debate whether those stories are truth or just very dramatic marketing. You wonder sometimes what it would be like to train as one, to stand in armor, shout your lineage, draw steel. But that fantasy ends the moment your stomach growls again. Romance dies where hunger begins. Back in the square, a samurai official has posted new edicts on the village board. You edge closer, trying to read the brushstrokes. Taxes are increasing again, this time in rice. That's fine. You only needed to eat every other day anyway. You overhear murmurs. Someone saw a group of armed men near the forest trails last night. Could be bandits. Could be scouts from another domain testing the borders. Either way, it means trouble. A few years ago, a samurai patrol passed through and left behind a single boot print and 3 dead chickens. No one asked questions. Questions imply you want answers. The woman next to you sighs. Her brother was conscripted last season, off to the northern borders. No letters since. The army doesn't exactly provide dental care and pensions. If he returns, he'll be a ghost. If he doesn't, well, he'll still be a ghost, just a quieter one. There's a strange relationship between the people and the samurai, equal parts fear, resentment, and reluctant respect. You know that without them, the roads wouldn't be safe, your village might be raided, and your lords might be overthrown. But with them, well, let's just say your neck muscles are permanently sore from bowing. You head back to the fields, tools slung over your shoulder. Thoughts drifting between survival and curiosity. There's a comfort in knowing your place, but also a quiet rebellion in dreaming about somewhere else, somewhere without armor clinking in the morning fog. The sun is climbing now. The village has fully awakened, but you can't shake the memory of that samurai's gaze. Not angry, not friendly, just watchful, like the mountains. In this land of honor and silence, you survive by knowing when to speak, and when to simply bow low enough that the blade passes right over your head. The sun climbs higher, and your stomach grumbles again, because scraping burnt rice out of a pot does not count as a balanced meal. You wipe the sweat from your brow with a sleeve stiffened by yesterday's mud, and think about lunch, or as it's known here, whatever happens to still be edible. You head back home and duck through the Norin, those short hanging curtains draped in your doorway, and step into the comforting smells of rice, soy, and something vaguely pickled. Your mother or aunt, or frankly anyone who's willing to cook today, is stirring a clay pot of miso soup. It bubbles gently, releasing a steam that carries the scent of fermented soybean paste, seaweed, and tiny cubes of tofu, so soft they wobble when you blink at them too hard. Today's meal is typical and humble. A bowl of white rice, probably mixed with millet to stretch the ration, miso soup, and 3 side dishes: pickled daikon radish, boiled greens with sesame seeds, and a small, gloriously salty dried fish. You grab a pair of chopsticks, say your thanks, itadakimasu, and dive in. Well, not literally. You still have some self-respect. The rice is warm, fluffy, and slightly sweet. You savor every bite, partly because it's delicious, and partly because it's not guaranteed tomorrow. Rice is currency here. You don't just eat it. You pay taxes in it. You measure wealth with it. A samurai's salary? Also rice. It's like if your boss handed you your paycheck in bags of quinoa. Historians still debate whether the peasantry actually had enough rice to survive, or whether it was mostly hoarded and shipped off to the castles and temples. Most likely, it depended on your lord, your harvest, and how convincing your sick grandma story was at tax season. But rice is just the foundation. The real surprises lie in the side dishes. You nibble on tsukimono, pickled vegetables, aged in salt or rice bran, until they're tart, crunchy, and vaguely challenging. Each bite offers a fun guessing game of, is this cabbage, radish, or seaweed? And the fermented beans? Oh yes, natto. They arrive on a small wooden plate, glistening with stringy goo that clings to your chopsticks like spider webs. The smell? Pungent. The flavor? Earthy and bold. It's like your mouth walked into a soy-scented barn and decided to stay for tea. You power through because this slimy nightmare is packed with protein and because, frankly, there's no dessert. And yet, there's comfort in the ritual. Every bite has its place. Every meal reflects the season. In spring, you might get bamboo shoots. In summer, cold soba noodles with a soy-based dipping sauce. In autumn, grilled mushrooms. In winter, hot pots and root vegetables that taste like survival. Nature sets the menu, and your hunger sets the mood. There's also a touch of superstition in every meal. You've been told never to stick your chopsticks upright in rice. It resembles a funeral offering. You once did it as a joke. Your grandmother didn't talk to you for 3 days. She did, however, sprinkle salt at the doorway to cleanse your jinxed aura. Speaking of superstition, some villagers believe that cooking certain foods at specific times, like fish on the day of a full moon, attracts bad spirits. Others think you should leave a bit of rice in the pot for the kitchen kami, a tiny household deity who apparently loves leftovers. If you offend him, your soup might curdle, or your firewood might dampen mysteriously. Coincidence? Maybe. But try explaining that to a rice god with abandonment issues. As you eat, the conversation shifts to gossip, mostly about food, sometimes about marriage prospects, occasionally about that one merchant who tried to sell fresh melon in January. He's still recovering from the social backlash. You also hear talk of a traveling monk who passed through a few nights ago, offering prayers in exchange for soup. He told stories of temples where monks eat only once a day, practice silent meditation, and survive on mountain roots and pure discipline. You try to imagine giving up rice. The thought is both noble and horrifying. Meals like this are rarely eaten alone. If they are, it's usually because you're sick, sulking, or samurai adjacent. Family, neighbors, even random friends passing by. Everyone gathers around the low wooden table, sitting cross-legged on floor cushions that double as cat beds and foot warmers. You share food, share laughter, and sometimes share that one stubborn fly that refuses to leave the daikon alone. A quirky little fact, Japanese peasants in this era sometimes roasted soybeans and tossed them outside their doors on Setsubun, the day before spring. "Out with the demons, in with good fortune," they'd chant, pelting invisible spirits with legumes. You tried it once. You hit your uncle in the back of the head. The demon probably left, but your reputation didn't recover for a month. You slurp the last of your soup and pat your belly. Not full, but at peace. It's not glamorous. It's not exotic. But it's yours. You give thanks again, Gochiso-sama deshita, and help clear the table. The leftover rice will be stored in bamboo containers. The pickles will be sealed in their jars. And the fish bones, well, the dog's already staring at you with hopeful eyes. Later, you pass by a traveling food vendor near the village gate. His cart creaks with hanging skewers, tiny dried squid, and steaming mochi cakes. The sweet smell of soy glaze makes your stomach flinch with regret. You could have waited 5 more minutes. He offers you a sample, grilled rice ball with miso paste. It burns your tongue and fills your soul. You trade a handful of millet for one more and wander off, chewing slowly as the afternoon sun warms your shoulders. A breeze rustles the bamboo. Somewhere nearby, someone starts singing a work song. Soft, steady, familiar. The kind of tune passed down from mouths that survived more than they celebrated. Food here isn't about indulgence. It's about balance, respect, and resourcefulness. Every grain is a blessing. Every mistake is a lesson. And every fermented bean is gu, a dare from the ancestors. You wipe your hands on your robe, watch a sparrow flit by, and walk back toward the fields, rice in your belly and soy on your breath. The midday sun leans directly overhead now, casting sharp shadows over the fields and leaving no mercy for your aching shoulders. You tie a cloth around your head to keep the sweat out of your eyes. It doesn't help much. Your back is bent. Your knees pop like popcorn every time you straighten. And the mosquitoes? They don't care that you're a hard-working member of society. They just want a taste. Welcome to your daily grind in feudal Japan. An endless cycle of work, sweat, repeat. You trudge into the flooded rice paddies barefoot, the cool mud squelching between your toes. It's oddly soothing. If you ignore the possibility of leeches, you move rhythmically, planting seedling after seedling, guided by muscle memory and the occasional chant from the older farmers. There's no tractor humming in the distance, no steel tools buzzing in your hands. Just you, the earth, and whatever motivation you can squeeze out of your aching spine. You spend hours under the sun, adjusting rows, pulling weeds, and shooing away the ducks that wander in from the stream. One of them stares at you defiantly, quacking like he owns the place. You let him. You're too tired to argue with poultry. Life as a peasant isn't just planting rice. Depending on your region and the season, your tasks vary like a particularly moody weather forecast. Some days, you're threshing grain with a wooden flail, swinging until your arms forget they were born for anything else. Other days, you're gathering firewood, cutting bamboo, hauling water, or repairing ditches after a storm floods the road. Again. There's a word you hear often. Giri. It roughly means duty or obligation, but it's more than that. It's the silent pressure that keeps you working even when your bones scream. It's why you bow to samurai, why you obey your village headman, and why you'd rather collapse from heat stroke than leave a task unfinished. You don't work for applause. You work because not working could put your family at risk, or worse, bring shame. You look up and see children chasing dragonflies with reed nets, laughter echoing across the hills. You smile a little. That was you not long ago, before your arms turned into ropes and your nails grew more dirt than keratin. Childhood here is fleeting, but it's loud and full of joy. Until it's not. A few teenage boys nearby are training with wooden staves, supervised by an elderly man with a limp and zero patience. He corrects their stances with a stick and yells about posture. You watch for a moment. It's technically exercise, but it's really preparation. For self-defense, for conscription, or just to avoid looking like easy prey if a wandering ronin decides to test his blade on peasants for sport. Not everyone works the land. Some villagers are craftspeople, blacksmiths, carpenters, potters. You envy them on rainy days when your fields turn into soup. One neighbor carves Geta sandals and tells the same joke every time. Someone picks up a pair. If you walk fast enough, they float. They don't. You've tested this in a monsoon. There's a kind of artistry to even the most mundane labor. Weaving straw into sandals, building walls from packed mud and bamboo, stitching clothes from hemp or cotton. All of it takes practice, patience, and a deeply personal relationship with calluses. Sometimes you get rest days. Not really days off, just days where you do slightly less labor and maybe fix your roof instead of your neighbor's. You might visit a shrine, drink tea slowly, or nap under a tree while pretending to guard the scarecrow. But true leisure? That's a luxury for nobles and cats. Still, you find your moments, like when the breeze carries the smell of grilled fish from someone's hearth, or when you finally finish stacking the firewood just right, and it doesn't fall over this time. Or when the old man next to you mutters, "Not bad, kid," after a long day of field work. High praise in a world where "not dead yet" is considered optimistic. You pause to drink from a bamboo flask filled with lukewarm barley tea. It tastes earthy and plain, but you'd fight someone for it right now. A fellow farmer offers you a rice cracker from her pouch. You take it, chew slowly, and wonder if this is what luxury tastes like. Spoiler, it isn't. But it's crispy and salty and not another spoonful of miso, so it's a win. There's a kind of meditation in repetition. Your hands move automatically now. Pull, plant, smooth. The sun sinks lower. Shadows stretch. Cranes flap lazily over the marshland. Your brain slows to match the rhythm of the wind, the squish of your feet, the buzz of summer insects. This is your life. Not dramatic, not glamorous, but real. Historians still argue whether peasants were oppressed laborers or respected backbone of society. Truth is, it's both. You're poor, sure, but you're essential. The samurai may carry swords, but you carry civilization, one muddy handful at a time. Occasionally, a tax official comes around to assess your crop yield. He squints at your field, mutters some math, and leaves you a neat stack of dread wrapped in official-looking paper. You do the calculations. Your taxes this year will be roughly 1/3 of your rice, or more, because weather happened, or because the Lord's new castle garden needs koi ponds, and you can't exactly argue. That's not how this works. One wrong word, and you're in stocks, or worse, sent to clear the swamp road with your bare hands and a prayer to not catch anything fungal. You finish your last row just as the sun kisses the hills, painting the fields in gold. Your back feels like someone folded it wrong, and your legs are staging a protest, but you stand tall. Sort of. At least taller than the scarecrow. A rooster crows again. You're not sure if it's confused or judgmental. Either way, it's time to head home. You pass the shrine at the edge of the field and toss a coin into the offering box. You clap twice, bow, and whisper a wish you won't repeat aloud. Maybe for rain. Maybe for mercy. Maybe for a day when your work ends before your body does. You reach your house just as the first stars peek out. You wipe your feet, step inside, and breathe in the scent of tonight's soup. You made it. You worked. You endured. You'll do it all again tomorrow. Night falls slowly over the village, casting long shadows across the paper walls and flickering lanterns hung from doorways. You wipe the last of the mud from your feet, step onto the cool tatami, and take a breath that's equal parts exhaustion and relief. Your home is dim, lit only by a single oil lamp in the corner and the faint orange glow of the hearth. It's quiet, but not silent. Outside, frogs sing. The wind rustles the bamboo grove. Somewhere, a neighbor sneezes, then mutters a prayer. As the world winds down, it's time for something else to wake up. The spirits. Welcome to the spiritual heart of feudal Japan, where gods live in trees. Foxes might be watching you through the mist, and your ancestors are never really gone. Religion here isn't something you go to. It's woven into everything. Your meals, your routines, your superstitions, your architecture. It's not so much belief as it is air. You light a stick of incense and place it near the small family shrine tucked into a shelf. Simple, wooden, with a rice offering, a cup of water, and maybe a flower if someone remembered. This is where you honor your ancestors. They're watching, not in a creepy way, usually, but in the please don't embarrass us by doing something stupid kind of way. You bow your head and whisper a short prayer. Something about strength, health, and maybe asking great-grandpa to do something about that leak in the roof. You know, just in case. Outside, You hear the soft clang of a bell. That's the local Shugyosha, a wandering monk, passing through town. He carries a begging bowl and chants sutras with each step, a reminder that enlightenment might just be one rice ball away. You saw him earlier today sitting by the stream, talking to a cat. That cat didn't blink for 20 minutes. Either it was a very spiritual feline, or a fox in disguise. Ah yes, foxes. Kitsune. In your village, nobody says they believe in them, but nobody dares mock them either. Foxes are clever, magical, and notorious for playing tricks on humans. They're said to transform into beautiful women, lead men astray, or possess people just for fun. A local farmer swears his wife once talked in her sleep with a fox's voice. Historians still argue whether kitsune were born from folklore or conveniently blamed for marital disagreements. You remember one old story told around the fire. A man followed a beautiful woman deep into the forest. She vanished at sunrise. When he returned to town, 20 years had passed. Everyone he knew was gone. His only welcome? A fox statue, smiling faintly. You shiver a little, not from fear, but from how casually your neighbor told it while slicing pickles. Religion here is a blend. Shinto and Buddhism coexisting like old roommates who've agreed not to argue in front of guests. Shinto focuses on kami, divine spirits in nature. Every tree, river, rock, and breeze might have a soul. You bow to the mountain not because it's tall, but because it's listening. And when your roof doesn't leak during storm season, you leave an offering of sake for the local kami. Small price for waterproof tranquility. Buddhism, brought from China and Korea, brings other ideas. Rebirth, karma, the wheel of life. Temples rise on the edges of town, their curved rooftops catching the moonlight. Inside, monks chant in low, melodic tones that seem to make the air thicken. You've been to a temple festival once. Incense thick as fog, drums pounding like thunder, and a monk who served tea so slowly you nearly fell asleep waiting. But when you drank it, something settled inside you. Peace, or maybe just steam-induced clarity. There's also the matter of death. Funerals here are long, respectful, and quiet. The dead are cremated. The ashes placed in family graves. Ancestors are honored annually during Obon, when lanterns light the streets, and it's believed their spirits return home. You help hang glowing paper lanterns in the trees, each one a tiny beacon to guide loved ones back. It's beautiful. It's eerie. It's comforting. Your friend tells you her grandmother once saw her late husband in a dream during Obon. He said the pickles were too salty and asked her to tone it down next year. She immediately threw out the jar. Ghosts get opinions here. Superstition slips into the cracks of everything. Don't cut your nails at night. It invites death. Don't sleep with your head pointing north. That's how bodies are laid at funerals. Don't whistle after dark. Ghosts love music. And whatever you do, don't laugh at the tanuki statue outside the tea house. He's listening. Also, he might trip you. Even your house layout is shaped by these beliefs. There's no fourth room if it can be avoided. 4, eshi, sounds like the word for death. Doors align to welcome good energy, not spirits. You once moved a vase, and an elder quietly moved it back, muttering about chi flow and not angering the river gods. At the edge of the village stands a tiny shrine surrounded by stone foxes, their red bibs fluttering in the breeze. Children leave offerings there, rice balls, sweets, or little hand-carved dolls. No one touches them. Even the dogs avoid that path. It's not fear, it's respect. and a healthy desire to not wake up with fox footprints in your hair. Inside your home, you adjust the futon for the night. The fire crackles softly. A moth flits near the lamp, its shadow dancing across the paper wall like a spirit unsure of where to rest. You lie down, staring at the wooden beams above, their grain twisting like the paths of wandering souls. Is it all real? Are spirits watching? Are foxes whispering your name in the dark? You don't know. But as the incense burns low and the night deepens, you offer one more prayer, just in case. Morning slips into the village like a shy guest, quiet, gentle, but carrying the unmistakable buzz of anticipation. Today is different. You can feel it before your eyes are even open. No one's banging tools. No tax official is squinting at rice stalks. And perhaps most miraculously, your uncle hasn't yelled about anything yet. That's because today is festival day. You roll out of your futon, stretch with a groan, and catch the smell of something sweet frying in oil. Mochi cakes, maybe even dumplings. Outside, someone's already setting up bamboo poles. Kids run barefoot, shrieking with joy as they practice their dance steps, their tiny feet kicking up clouds of dust. Even the rooster looks slightly festive, or just confused. It's hard to tell with birds. You pull on your best robe, not fancy but clean, and head out to join the tide of preparation. Villagers are decorating the main path with paper streamers, lanterns, and sprigs of pine. A local carpenter is hammering together a makeshift stage with the enthusiasm of a man who gets to avoid fieldwork for a whole day. Women are arranging platters of pickled vegetables, grilled fish, and rice balls in careful rows. You glance at one tray and spot takoyaki, octopus balls. Your heart whispers, yes. Festival, or matsuri, is your reward for surviving the grind. It's a rare day off, a burst of color and noise in an otherwise rice-colored world. The theme of today's festival? You honestly don't know. It might be the harvest, might be to honor the shrine's deity, might be just because someone in the village had leftover fireworks. Either way, you're not asking questions. You're putting on sandals and grabbing a skewer. You pass the shrine, now freshly polished and adorned with offerings, fruit, sake, and a small box of coins. A group of men carry the mikoshi, a portable shrine, on their shoulders, chanting rhythmically. The thing sways like a drunken goose, but it's meant to house the spirit of the deity as it visits the village. It's a deeply spiritual act. Also, everyone involved will absolutely throw their backs out tomorrow. Nearby, a group of children are attempting kagura, a sacred dance. Their timing is enthusiastic, if not exactly coordinated. An elderly priest claps softly, encouraging them. His robes shimmer slightly in the sun, his face unreadable, except for the tiniest smile that says, "This is chaos, but it's my chaos." Soon, music begins. Flutes, drums, and the sharp twang of the shamisen. You feel it in your chest, this ancient rhythm that connects generations. You find yourself tapping your fingers against your side, nodding along. The beat is imperfect. It's human. It's alive. Food stalls line the street now. A vendor flips skewers of grilled eel with alarming speed. Another tosses yaki onigiri, rice balls brushed with soy sauce, into a basket. There's even kakigori, shaved ice with syrup for the children. You hesitate. That's practically luxurious. You buy one anyway. You've earned it. A small group gathers around a storyteller perched on a wooden crate. He begins weaving a tale of a samurai who fought a sea dragon with only a mirror and a prayer. Everyone leans in, even the teenagers who pretend to be bored. His voice rises and falls, slow as a tide, and when he ends with, "And the dragon still sleeps beneath Lake Biwa," you glance nervously at your cup of tea. Across the way, a makeshift game begins, goldfish scooping. You get one paper net, and if you're careful, Reed, not you can catch a fish without the net dissolving. Your cousin tries and immediately fails. She shrugs and claims she let it go on purpose. The fish appears smug. You hear laughter now from every corner. Old men arguing over who danced best last year. Girls trying on flower combs and sneaking glances at boys. Even the village headman is smiling. Openly. You consider making a wish at the shrine while the goodwill's strong. A lesser-known tradition pops up, Hyaku Monogatari, 100 ghost stories told by candlelight. The rules are simple. Tell a spooky story, then snuff out a candle. When the last one goes out, a spirit might appear, or so they say. You once made it to story number 7 before screaming and running. In your defense, someone touched your foot under the mat. And you still don't know who. As the sun dips low, the sky becomes a deepening bowl of lavender. That's when the lanterns are lit, hundreds of them, swaying gently from ropes tied across buildings and trees. Soft, warm light floods the streets. Children parade with handheld lanterns shaped like rabbits, cranes, and, because of course, foxes. Your steps slow. You breathe in deep. The scent of grilled eggplant, firewood, and sweet sake fills your chest like a lullaby. And then comes the procession. Everyone lines up behind the mikoshi, clapping and chanting as they escort it through the village. The rhythm is hypnotic. You fall in step, carried by the tide of neighbors and friends. Strangers are smiling like family. Even the dogs seem to be wagging on beat. Someone hands you a cup of sake. It's warm, sweet, and a little dangerous. You sip slowly, laughing with a friend about nothing in particular. Fireworks suddenly crackle in the sky, bright reds and golds exploding over rooftops. You look up, stunned. You always forget how beautiful they are, and how loud. Next to you, a child claps with delight, her face lit by lanterns and starlight. An old woman prays quietly. A drunk uncle tries to start a song 3 keys too high. You wouldn't change any of it. The festival pulses into the night, music rising, feet dancing, hands clapping until even your heartbeat gets confused. But eventually, the drums slow. The last skewer is eaten. The sake runs dry. You walk home barefoot, sandals forgotten somewhere near the rice field. The path is lit by a few stubborn lanterns and the full moon overhead. Crickets sing now. The wind has cooled. You lie down that night, every muscle sore, belly full, heart lighter. Maybe the spirits were watching. Maybe the foxes danced too. Either way, for once, you don't worry about tomorrow. The party's over. The lanterns have dimmed, your legs ache in the good way, and life slides right back into its regular shape like a well-worn kimono. There's no warm sake in your cup this morning, just barley tea and the unwelcome reminder that tax season is eternal. Because in feudal Japan, if you're not a warrior or a monk, chances are you're a taxpayer. You're back in the rice fields, shoulder to shoulder with your family. But now the local steward's been making rounds with his scrolls and abacus. You can practically feel his gaze skimming across your crops, calculating what your hard work is worth, and how much of it you don't get to keep. The land you work isn't yours. It belongs to the daimyo, a powerful feudal lord whose wealth is measured in koku, a unit that technically represents enough rice to feed one person for a year. One koku is about 5 bushels of rice, but don't get too attached to it. You won't be seeing much. You glance up the hill and see the daimyo's castle looming in the distance, all curved roofs and layered defenses. It's a beauty, imposing, symmetrical, and very, very far from your leaky little hut. If castles had Yelp reviews, yours would be, "Excellent views, too many archers." Still, it's hard not to admire it. The whole thing was built without nails, relying on masterful joinery and precise carpentry. It's equal parts fortress and status symbol, designed to showcase power and withstand sieges. You imagine life inside: silken screens, lacquered wood, and maybe a koi pond or two. It's nice to dream, but don't get carried away. You're more likely to carry the daimyo's laundry than live like him. Now, remember that steward? He's not just here to chat about weather. He's tallying up your expected tribute, part of your rice harvest, maybe some cloth, timber, or a few chickens if he's feeling rustic. The actual percentage varies wildly, but it's never low enough for your liking. Some years it hits 40%. That's almost half of your blood, sweat, and tears scooped into someone else's basket. And here's the real kicker. If your village falls behind on quotas, the punishment doesn't fall evenly. The headman might take the brunt, but if the debt grows large enough, everyone suffers. There are stories, historians still argue whether they're exaggerated, of entire villages being relocated or wiped out after repeated failures to meet tax obligations. Let's just say you don't want to find out firsthand. Now, if you're thinking, maybe I'll just move somewhere else, think again. Most commoners are bound to their land, not by shackles, but by necessity. Paperwork, class structure, and the general fact that you don't own a horse all conspire to keep you where you are. Of course, not all lords are equal. Some daimyo are benevolent, or at least efficient, ruling their domains like careful CEOs with a katana. Others? Well, let's just say there's a reason samurai poetry is full of veiled complaints and metaphorical volcanoes. And speaking of samurai, their loyalty isn't always to the emperor or even the shogun. In the real Game of Thrones here, it's all about allegiance to the daimyo. A daimyo provides land and income, and in return, he gets warriors who'll enforce his will and look extremely cool doing it. You, on the other hand, just get rules. Lots and lots of rules. But feudal society isn't entirely joyless bureaucracy. There's still room for ambition. If you're incredibly lucky or unusually charming, maybe you impress a local official with your carpentry skills or marry into a slightly wealthier farming family. Social mobility isn't impossible. It's just roughly as likely as finding a perfectly symmetrical rice grain. The castle, though, that's the symbol that binds everything. When the daimyo isn't touring his lands or warring with a neighbor, he holds court inside. You've never been beyond the outer moat, but word travels. His retainers wear elaborate robes, debate law, and sip tea in rooms so clean they could shame a fox spirit. Political intrigue swirls like incense smoke, and while the peasantry only catches hints, you know that every decree that affects your life probably passed through those halls. And yes, there are taxes for things besides rice. Timber, cloth, salt, anything that has value. Some areas even have corvée labor, forced service a few days a year for castle repairs or road maintenance. Congratulations, you're now also a part-time civil engineer. But not all authority comes from castles. The shogunate, Japan's real ruling body, operates from Edo, modern-day Tokyo, setting national policies and occasionally stomping on rebellious daimyo like an irritated god. You've probably never seen Edo, but you know it looms large in the minds of your lord and his retainers. That's where the power flows from. Or trickles, depending on the century. One odd fact: some daimyo were required to participate in a system called Sankin Kotai, alternate attendance. They had to spend every other year in Edo, dragging along an enormous entourage and leaving their families behind as hostages. It was both a power move and a drain on their finances. You've never seen it, but you have watched your local lord's caravan return from such a journey. Lacquered boxes, armor gleaming, a bored look in his eye. You bowed, of course, deeply, twice. Still, not all castles are equal, and not all daimyo rule with fairness. Some territories prosper, others crumble under corruption or conflict. Occasionally, the whispers grow. A new tax is coming, or a samurai was seen drawing his sword in court. You know better than to speak about it openly, but you do listen. Every villager does. And once a year, the daimyo rides through the area. A slow, ceremonial procession meant to remind everyone who's boss. You remember your first time seeing His horse was black as ink, his armor lacquered red. You couldn't see his face, but you felt it in your bones. This man owns the ground beneath your feet. He didn't stop. He didn't wave. But the whole village bowed as one. And that night, as you soaked your aching feet in a tub of lukewarm water, you couldn't help but wonder if he even noticed your house. Probably not. But you did everything right anyway, just in case. The sun hasn't fully risen, and already you feel that crackling buzz in the air, the kind that crawls under your skin and whispers, "Today's not normal." Chickens cluck nervously. Neighbors murmur in lower voices than usual. You spot a group of children playing by the road, but even their laughter sounds like it's holding its breath. You step outside and scan the path leading to the village gate. Dust. Riders. Not the usual rice inspectors or wandering monks. These men wear swords that haven't dulled in years. Some wear half armor, others travel light, but all of them carry the same unreadable calm in their eyes, the kind that says they've ended lives and could do it again before finishing their tea. Morai, but not from around here, and suddenly you understand the tension. There's been talk lately, of course. When isn't there? The neighboring clan has been flexing. A border dispute. Some insult traded at a wedding. And now, maybe, you're watching the quiet opening chords of a blood symphony. Living in feudal Japan means you exist inside a vast, invisible spiderweb of allegiances and rivalries. The shogun might sit comfortably in Edo, technically ruling in the emperor's name, but out here, power changes hands with alarming frequency, and sometimes with fire. That distant mountain range, it's not just scenic. It's the edge of your daimyo's land. Beyond that, another lord, another set of taxes, another dialect even. People there wear their sashes differently and swear by different shrine spirits. And if a samurai from that territory crosses into yours with a weapon drawn, it's not just trespassing. It's potentially a declaration of war. This is why travel is rare and dangerous for commoners. There are no highways lined with ramen shops, just winding dirt roads, forested passes, and the occasional checkpoint where your papers are scrutinized like you're smuggling dragons. Even moving a few villages over can require special permission and a healthy fear of bandits. Yes, real bandits, and not the charming kind who wink before they steal your purse. These are men driven by desperation, revenge, or just plain cruelty. They hide in forest shadows, strike fast, and vanish before the nearest patrol arrives. You've never seen one up close, thankfully. But old Sato swears he saw a bandit once. Or maybe it was just a bear. Hard to say with his eyesight. Still, there are rules. Even bandits have to worry about Bushido, the samurai code of honor. Technically, it doesn't apply to outlaws, but it seeps into every corner of feudal life. Honor, loyalty, self-discipline. These ideals dictate everything from how a warrior greets his superior to how he dies. You once saw a samurai commit seppuku, ritual suicide to preserve honor. He sat perfectly still, dressed in white, and slid the blade into his abdomen without a sound. His second, standing behind him, ended it quickly. You were too young to understand, but the image never left your mind. That's how deep the code runs. Yet historians still argue whether Bushido was widely followed or mostly romanticized later. Did most samurai live by it, or just pay lip service while drinking too much sake and chasing debts? Probably both. People are people, even in lacquered armor. But you're just trying to survive another day. Your daimyo's castle has posted a new notice. You squint at the blocky brushstrokes. It announces increased patrols near the border. Volunteers are being recruited. There's a whisper of conscription, but nothing official. Yet. You wonder, will your son be taken? Or that clever kid who carves birds from bamboo? War chews up farmers just as easily as trained swordsmen. It doesn't care who planted the rice, it just burns the field. One oddball in the village, a former monk with an eye twitch and too many cats, claims that a solar eclipse last month foretold violence. He says dreams of red rivers and headless cranes mean the gods are restless. You don't believe him, but you do avoid walking past his house at night. And you've heard the stories, plenty of them. Families forced to abandon homes overnight. Villages caught between marching armies, used as temporary camps or battlegrounds. Fields flattened, shrines desecrated. One time, you passed through a town where the statue of the rice goddess had been shattered. No one would speak of what happened there. You double-check your tools. You quietly patch the loose thatch in the roof. You start storing extra grain under the floorboards, just in case. Because in feudal Japan, the border isn't just a line on a map. It's a fuse, and you can never tell how short it is. And yet, despite the threat, life continues. You still trade with nearby villages. You still repair your sandals and carve wooden toys for your nieces. Humans adapt, even to dread. Every few weeks, a traveling storyteller passes through. He's got a lute, a toothy grin, and a sack of gossip. He says there's a new warlord in the north, rising fast, consolidating power. He says peace talks have failed somewhere near Kyoto. He says the shogun's court is distracted, and the land is drifting back toward chaos. You don't know if it's true. But when the wind changes, and the crows fly low, and your neighbor sharpens his hoe just a little more carefully than usual, you feel it in your bones. And that night, lying on your futon, you imagine the clatter of hooves in the distance. You picture armored warriors cresting the hill. You hold your breath and you wait. Morning fog hugs the valley like a ghost refusing to leave. You squint into the mist as you trudge toward the rice paddies, straw sandals slick with dew, a bamboo rake slung over your shoulder. The threat of war may hang over the countryside like a hawk over a rabbit, but the rice doesn't care. It still needs water, warmth, and back-breaking labor to thrive. You cross paths with your cousin, who nods solemnly and mutters something about the frog singing too loudly last night. Omen? Weather sign? Just country wisdom at work. Either way, you both know what today brings. A long, aching day of labor in the fields. And so it begins. Another ritual of rural life, where every sunbeam is accounted for and every drop of water is gold. The rice paddy is already alive with movement. Men, women, even kids old enough to stand on their own, all knee-deep in warm, murky water, faces covered in wide straw hats, hands muddy to the elbows. You join the line and start planting, one delicate green sprout after another, spaced just so, pressed gently into the submerged soil. Repetition is everything. Precision is survival. It's hard, monotonous work, but there's a rhythm to it. Squelch, plant, step. Squelch, plant, step. Your muscles burn, but your mind drifts. You think about the changing seasons, about your uncle's creaky knee, about whether the shrine fox will steal your lunch again today. You think about nothing, and maybe that's the point. In this world, peace of mind isn't found in temples. It's hidden under mud. Now and then, a supervisor, appointed by the village elder or the local magistrate, wanders by, checking the spacing, making notes. He's grumpy, carries a scroll, and always smells vaguely like pickled plums. But you respect him, just enough. By midday, the sun pushes the mist away like a hand parting a curtain. Heat swells. Insects hum. Sweat trickles down your neck. Someone starts singing an old work song, rhythmic and teasing, and others join in. It's slightly off-key, but no one cares. It keeps the pace. You break for lunch beneath a stunted willow tree. A modest meal. Cold rice balls, pickled vegetables, maybe a dried fish if you're lucky. You share some with a skinny dog that's been tailing you all morning. He accepts, then promptly collapses in the shade like he owns the tree. As you eat, you talk with others. Gossip, mostly. Who might be getting married? Who's been sneaking fermented millet behind the bathhouse? Whether the Lord's son really crashed his horse into the ceremonial bell last week. Historians still argue whether peasant life in feudal Japan was unrelenting drudgery, or if these quiet moments, simple meals, shared laughter, offered real joy. You lean toward the latter, at least today. In the afternoon, it's weeding duty. A hated task, but necessary. If left unchecked, the weeds will choke your future grain. So you wade in again, this time with a curved knife, slicing and pulling, grumbling as you go. The mud sucks at your feet. Your back protests. You curse, mildly, just enough to let the weeds know who's boss. But this work is your lifeblood, quite literally. Come harvest time, everything depends on it. Your taxes to the daimyo are paid in rice. Your family eats rice. Your neighbors trade rice for tools and cloth. Your entire existence is balanced on this humble stock. You're not just planting food. You're growing loyalty, status, currency, power. Occasionally, a passing official arrives from the castle, tallying expected yields. They arrive on horseback, dressed in silk robes, dyed with colors you can't afford to imagine. One even had a golden fan. They look at your paddies like you look at fish in a stream, curious, detached, a little bored. Then they leave, and you're left wondering whether your hard work impressed, or will be taxed harder. Evenings bring a different mood. After bathing, either in the river or at the communal bathhouse, you feel the ache settle into your bones. You cook with what's available. Grilled fish if the river's been kind, boiled radish, miso soup, and always, always, rice. You eat slowly, savoring every grain like a reward. On some evenings, there's music. Someone brings out a shamisen. Someone else drums on an overturned bucket. Children dance, adults clap, and for a while, the tension lifts. Life is hard, but not hopeless. Sometimes the tax collector visits. He wears a knowing smile and carries a lacquered box. You offer your portion, measured, weighed, documented. There's little room for negotiation. You give what you must, and sometimes a little more, if you value your teeth staying in place. One fringe detail you overheard from an old merchant. Some villages once faked bad harvests by planting stones beneath the soil, hoping the roots would die and justify lower taxes. Ingenious, dangerous, probably didn't end well. Occasionally, work means more than rice. Roofs collapse, tools break, roads need mending. You join your neighbors in these collective tasks, carrying beams, mixing plaster, hauling stones. No one complains too loudly. It's understood. Without mutual help, nothing functions. This is the Mura, the village, and it holds you all together like the stitches in an old but cherished kimono. And just as importantly, you pass this knowledge to your children. They mimic your planting gestures, your weeding rhythm, your jokes about rice spirits needing a drink. You teach them not just how to farm, but how to survive, how to stay quiet around officials, how to read the sky, how to listen when the land whispers, not yet, soon, almost there. Because farming in feudal Japan isn't just occupation, it's endurance, a generational relay race. And you, muddy to the knees, sunburnt and half sore, are the current runner. As night falls, you look over the paddies one last time. The water glimmers, fireflies flicker, the frogs resume their chorus. You bow silently to the field. Not from superstition, but gratitude. It accepted your labor today. It might feed you tomorrow, and that's enough. Darkness in the countryside isn't just the absence of light. It's an enveloping, ink-black stillness that presses up against the thin ice paper walls of your home. You lie on your straw-stuffed futon, listening to the orchestra of the night. Crickets, frogs, a distant dog barking at nothing, or perhaps something you'd rather not think about. It's late. The fire has burned down to embers. The soft scent of charcoal lingers in the air. You pull the thin summer blanket over your legs and stare up at the ceiling beams above you. They're low, familiar, worn smooth with time. You wonder how many generations have stared at those same beams, listening to the same quiet, letting their imaginations drift into the world of ghosts and dreams. Your grandmother, before she passed, used to whisper stories at bedtime. Not sweet fairy tales, but eerie, skin-prickling tales of vengeful spirits, of yurei with long black hair and no feet, floating across the rice fields in the mist, of lost samurai who still wander the roads at night, confused, bleeding, looking for someone to finish their story. You used to laugh at them, then check every shadow before falling asleep. Tonight, the air feels thick. Outside, the wind rustles through the bamboo grove like a whisper. You know that ghosts aren't real. Probably. But this is Japan. The land itself remembers. And the spirits? Well, they don't always follow rules. Someone nearby is telling a kaidan, a ghost story. Their voice floats in from a neighboring home, low and slow, almost rhythmic. The tale is about a merchant who cheated a customer and woke up every night to the sound of coins dropping onto his roof. Every night. The coins never stopped, and he never found them. Eventually, they say, he climbed up there and never came down. The storyteller laughs gently. So do the listeners. But it's the kind of laugh people make to keep the fear at bay. You roll onto your side and try to block it out. Ghost stories are part of the culture. People in feudal Japan lived closely with death. Through war, disease, childbirth, famine. Spirits were a way to explain the unexplained, to cope, to warn, and sometimes to entertain. Historians still argue whether the belief in spirits like the Yurei was rooted in actual religious doctrine or more a blend of local superstition and imported Buddhist ideas. Either way, they were real enough to affect behavior. Entire families built extra rooms just to appease the dead. You're not ashamed to admit your family placed offerings on the windowsill during Obon, the festival where spirits of the dead return. Everyone does, just in case. Speaking of Obon, you remember last summer's festival. The lanterns swayed above the river like glowing souls. Some people whispered names into the wind as they released their lanterns. Others stayed silent, just watching the lights drift into darkness. You think of one woman, very old, whose lantern tipped over and circled back toward her. She gasped, cried a little, said it was her husband. One laughed. Tonight, though, there are no lanterns, just moonlight, pale and cold, filtering through the slats in the window like the touch of something not quite alive. Your younger brother snores softly nearby. You envy him. He doesn't seem haunted by anything. Not yet. You hear something outside. A crack, a step, maybe just a deer. Maybe. You remember your neighbor talking about a mujina, a faceless creature that mimics human form, only to reveal its featureless face when you look too closely. She said she saw one last week near the well. Of course, that same neighbor also once tried to marry her cat. So, you take it with a grain of salt. But still, there's something primal about night in feudal Japan. The lack of artificial light makes every shadow alive. Every tree becomes a silhouette. Every bump in the night could be a thief, or something worse. That's why you bolted the door, placed a charm near the window, and whispered a quick prayer to the local kami. You're not paranoid, just prudent. There are real dangers, too. Bandits sometimes strike under cover of darkness. Wild animals come down from the mountains. Fires, deadly in a village of wooden homes and straw roofs, can turn sleep into panic in seconds. You keep a jug of water near the door. Everyone does. But most nights are like this. Quiet, unnerving, peaceful, in a way that only makes your thoughts louder. You begin to drift. Your body relaxes, but your mind wanders. You think of the samurai and their rigid code. What was it like to sleep knowing you might have to die tomorrow? You think of the farmer's daughter who ran away with a traveling monk. Did she find freedom? Or just a different kind of prison? Your own future? Unclear. Maybe you'll farm until your back gives out. Maybe war will come and you'll be conscripted. Maybe you'll join the shrine as an acolyte, live in serenity, and finally understand why the priests always smell like incense and pickled fish. One fringe detail you overheard? Some monks used to mummify themselves, alive, through years of ritual starvation. You're definitely not doing that. No, you'll stay here. For now. With your family, your fields, your ghosts. Life is simple, yes, but also full. Full of strange beauty, harsh lessons, quiet joy. You lived the entire day in a world shaped by rice and ritual, by hierarchy and hidden spirits. A world where survival is art, and every nightfall is both an ending and a spell. The crickets grow louder. The breeze slips under the door. You close your eyes. The night accepts you. And now, your journey through feudal Japan gently fades. The moon still hangs above the thatched rooftops, casting silver light across quiet fields. But your breath has slowed, your muscles softened, your mind settled. You've walked the muddy paths of a rice farmer, bowed before samurai, shared laughter at the village festival, and paused in the doorway at night, wondering if the shadows hold something more than just dreams. You've lived another life, in another time. And maybe, just maybe, you understand a little more of what it means to be human across the centuries. Let the last echoes of shamisen strings and crackling fire drift away now. Let the wind through the bamboo lull you deeper. That chill on your toes. Just the breeze, not a passing spirit. The past is behind you now. The ghosts, if there were any, have quieted. The yurei have returned to their stories. The lanterns have all gone out, and the fields are still. You are safe. You are still. You are home. Breathe in slowly, and let it go. There's nothing more to worry about tonight. No fields to weed, no daimyo to appease, no ghosts to greet, just the hum of crickets, the gentle creak of old wood, and your breath. Let the quiet carry you into sleep, like a boat on still water, gliding toward dreams. Sleep well, traveler.